So welcome to an N1, where we explore the individual experiences of some of the world's most skilled applied behavioral scientists. Today's guest is Prakash Sharma, founder of 1001 Stories, joining me from India. He's a community builder. He's a friend. Prakash, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Matt, for welcoming me. I don't know if the word scientist is something that you can use with me. I do work with behavioral science, but if you get very technical, the word scientist, I guess it has a very strict definition.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, a scientist to me is someone who uses the scientific method, and I have watched you use the scientific many times. We're going to get into this. This is going to be great. But this is not how we always start. We got a format here on an N of one, right?
I'm all yours, Matt.
Yeah. We got to go to the beginning. We got to start where it starts. So first of all, and you know, part of the fun of this is that I don't know about your childhood either, and so I get to learn all sorts of cool shit about when Prakash was a kid.
Yeah.
So tell me
God.
about like baby Prakash. Like, what is like young like Prakash like?
All right. How long is this?
We have a whole hour. I'm gonna take you through your whole career. We're gonna go deep. It's gonna be great.
All right. So you have to give me that signal if I'm speaking a lot about something.
Oh no. Right. You ramble. That is what we want.
All right. Okay. All right. So I grew up in Assam, in the state called Assam. It's in the northeast of India, in the 80s. I was born in 1980, so it's like an 80s child. So growing up in India is crazy because it's such a complex nation. And if you grew up in the Northeast, like it's the best way to understand this is Northeast is to India what India is to the world in terms of complexity, right? So in my home state, for example, there are 52 languages I think they speak, different languages. And I don't even know the name of all the tribes. I can barely speak some 3-4 of those languages, right? So it's a complex area, part of the country. So I grew up there. It has an amazing history of its own. And like if you look at India as a country, you know, politically that map, the border, it existed. It came into existence once the British left. There was a British India. And before the British came in, there was a concept of the land of India, right? But the boundaries were not exactly there. There were different kingdoms. So if you go back enough in history, you have these different kingdoms. They all speak different language. They more or less sort of follow some gods, which are common. I don't want to use the word religion here. Some gods which are common, they follow them. And over a period of time, over those like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, that takes structure of some sort of religion. And today we call it Hinduism, right? But so it is this kind of a place, this country. And there you have Northeast, which has its own complexities. It is surprising to a lot of people that we have a state in the Northeast. It's called Mizoram, which is almost 90 or 98% Christian majority. And that's such an interesting data for a country like India, because we all think, what's a Hindu country, right? Like, no, you got all the religions of the world. I think we have the largest or second largest population of Muslims in the world, in this country, right? Christianity came to India not like 1,000 years after Christ. I think Saint Thomas is one of the first. I think he's one of the disciples or apostles of Christ, and he was the one who landed in India, like within 80-50. That's within 50 years of Christ himself being there. Christianity has already come to India. So whichever lens you look at it from, you look at it from a religion point of view, a language point of view, food point of view, philosophies about life point of view. If you look at science, maths, astronomy, the idea of zero, there is enough history in this country. It is both good and bad, and we can talk about why it is good, why it is bad later. So it's both good and bad, but the larger point is it's a very interesting place to be born into. As a culture, as a land, as a part of a people. So I grew up there, and it's a childhood which so the thing about India is if you are decently good in studies as a kid, everyone looks at it and says, oh, you're going to study science. It's a thing, like, oh yeah, you're going to study science, right? So I knew I knew I was going to study science as a kid. When I look back now, I don't know if it was a decision I made. And I do enjoy science, my physics, my chemistry, maths. I enjoy them a lot, right? But I don't know if it was a decision I made or people around me who kept on saying, oh, you're good at studies, you're going to be taking up science, I guess, right? So at some point of time.
Wait, and clarifying question. So people around you are pushing you into the sciences. Do you think, so if we asked 10-year-old Prakash, we know what you're going to study because it's science. What do you think you're going to be? Like a physicist? Like, what is that? Does it, like, career-wise?
10-year-old me is like highly taken by the idea of palmistry. Like, oh, you can read these lines. See, I grew up in Assam, right? Assam is the land of magic. Like, I've got stories from my childhood. A man turned into a goat, and now he's gone into a jungle. Like, a man became a goat, and he went to a jungle. There are stories like, oh, this woman wakes up in the morning, and now all her hair is like, it's in dreadlocks. One fine morning, she wakes up, she's got dreadlocks. And it means the goddess has blessed her. And now she can speak with the snakes, and she can decipher and decode your problems, which means 10 o'clock in the morning, right? It's just 2-3 hours, the news is spread. And now how house has become a shrine. So I've grown up in a place like magic is very real. In a place like this, in my childhood, right? Snakes guard treasures. So if you are a nice person, you can find a snake which might guide you to treasures. And when you're like, oh my God, I'm rich, I'm sorted, right? If you are bad and if you end up disturbing a spirit in its dwellings, right? The spirit might become vengeful. So I've known men turning into goats, snakes blessing people. I know like at least 4 ghosts who live near my house. I mean, live in the sense 4 ghosts who are near my house, the area I grew up in, and each of those ghosts has their own names, and when they come up, what do they do? So this is the kind of place that I've grown up in, and these things are very real, And so the 10-year-old me is very much taken by the idea of palmistry, and the idea that, oh, all right, this is what you call a lifeline, and if it ends here as opposed to here, it means you're gonna die here at this particular age. And if this line goes into this particular mount, it means, oh man, you're going to find love, right? If this thing is cut over here, it means you're going to die before your wife. All kind of stuff was fascinating for me, 10-year-old me, right? So this is what 10-year-old is doing.
I'm tempted to stretch the analogy because it's not that far, right? Behavioral science, sure, we're not looking at palms, but it's still a prediction based on evidence. Right? The evidence just changed. You're still a palmist.
You're trying to understand what is going to happen, right? So palmistry. So you're not surprised when I say numerology was the next fascination. The idea that, oh, I can figure out your date of birth and I add up those numbers. And if they end up, if they fall in 147 as a category or 369 as a category, right? You're going to be this kind of person. Now I can take your name, right? And I'm going to take the alphabets and I start counting them. See, I mean, these are stuff. I don't know if kids today are doing these things. Are they reading these things up? I know. Like, I know in the 80s when I was growing up, and because of the place that I was growing up in, these were serious business. Like, so it was important for you to master these kind of stuff. Not for everyone, but it was a legit, you can call it hobby. And so I was very taken by these ideas that these things can happen. I was very much taken by the idea of sammohan. It's a Hindi word for hypnotism, right? The idea that you can mesmerize someone, then you can get them to do A instead of B. I was very much taken by the idea that there are things called post-hypnotic suggestions, which means you could tell someone something, and 1 year, 2 year, 4 years from now, they would end up doing something. I mean, that is the world, right, that I'm growing. It's quite magical. And so this is me who is taken by magic. I want to be a magician too, maybe at some point of time. I'm a kid. I'm 10 years old at this point of time, Matt.
Look, I love this. I think this is great. The predictive power of magic. I love that you're into hypnotism because, the methodology changes, but the outcome is the same. Hey, I want to be able to change other people.
Yeah.
There's this question we sort of ask people sometimes in life about like, oh, if you could have a superpower, what superpower would you have? And 10-year-old you is not picking flying. He's picking changing behavior. So it's not totally that you've ended up where you've ended up, even if you're not reading palms. Now wait a minute, although I have to know, like, can you still do the numerology thing? If I tell you my birth date, can we, like, is there predictions?
I remember basic stuff. I haven't done that like since I was 12 or 13, but I remember the basics, like, the heart line, love line, the different bounds, Saturn, stuff like that, or the groupings, like 147, they go into a particular type of number, 258, they go, you count from like 1 to 9, and the whole idea is you reduce the numbers to one of these three categories, right? 258, 147, 369, and 369 is supposed to be one type of personality. 147 is supposed to be, a type, and then where do you reduce the number from? You can get it from a date of birth, it can come from a name. So now you can extrapolate, right? Oh, this is my mobile number. Is this number good for me or bad? Right? My name is Matt with a double T. Should I switch to Matthew? Because that adds up to a certain kind of summation and is closer to my category, which is supposedly good for me. So now there's the whole premise of people who are working with you on changing your names to a more auspicious or luckier name for you, because I changed who you are by changing your name, and those letters add up to a certain number. And because of that, they influence the context or the world around you. And certain things happen to you frequently, which is essentially what luck is. Luck is you having more opportunities come down to you frequently, plus you're prepared to take them, right? So you get lucky. So I do know, I think I do remember bits and pieces of it, but I think let's not talk a lot about numerology and palmistry.
I think this is great. The next time I see you, I'm getting my palm read. And I actually think, again, I can't help but as you're going through it, like, there's a lot of analogy for behavioral science in there.
Like that. Yeah, I mean, now that you're saying it, it's very interesting to me. All right, yeah. Like I can think in those terms. Like, if you would ask me, where is your interest in psychology? Like, what is the earliest you remember? So again, I'd go back to studies, and again in India, being a good student, scoring good marks, being a topper is highly prized. It was not big on sports then, right? So as a kid, you study, and there are enough proverbs in the language. पढ़ोगे लिखोगे तो बनोगे नवाब, खेलोगे कूदोगे तो बनोगे खराब. पढ़ोगे लिखोगे, if you read and you write, you will become a nawab, a king. You end up being rich, you end up getting all the riches, power, prestige. पढ़ोगे लिखोगे तो बनोगे नवाब, खेलोगे कूदोगे, if you go out and play, तो बनोगे खराब, then you get spoiled, right? So your language around you through proverbs and myths and all these stories like the Aesop's fables, right? Stories which come down generations, they are all encoded with this idea that you want to study. So I was studying when I was a decent student, and I want to be better at scoring marks and all. So one of the things you realize is, oh my God, I don't feel like studying, man. Right? I got a test coming up, I got homeworks to do, and you're like class 6 or 7, 8 standard. Like, I don't want to. I know today you realize, oh, that's what's called procrastination, right? You're delaying the pain, that your struggle, right? Immediate gratification versus the long-term promise. Today you have the words for it. Then you were a kid, so you're like, I want to study, I want to do this, and I do remember some book which I picked up. It was a book fair, I think 1992, and the book said The Miracle of Motivation. And I think there was a blow of like, with the right motivation, you can do anything you want, right? I'm like, oh my God, I think I got to pick this up. I had no idea what it meant, but I remember picking up that book. I remember picking up another book which was around memory. And the whole idea is you can train memory. Like you don't have to be satisfied with the memory that you have. You can make it better, right? Now, the Indian education system is designed a lot around remembering things and being able to reproduce it. So the idea that you could expand your memory and make it better was interesting. So that book had fantastic tricks, Matt. Like yeah, I still remember, man. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. You can use rhymes, right? Oh, so you can use rhymes to remember things. Fantastic. All right. It spoke about visualization. So you're talking about math, for example. I want to remember your name. Math, I might forget it. I can picture you standing on a mat. I can picture you carrying a mat. I can say, hey, Matt, come. This is a nice mat. I do this multiple number of times. I can now remember. I got more data points in my brain to remember this dude. His name is Matt, right? So it spoke about visualization. It spoke about using mnemonics. It spoke about what today is called, I think, the Mind Palace after the Sherlock show from BBC. In the past, I think they used to call the method of loci, which is some old story from the Greek times. There was some sort of a dinner party or a wedding event 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago in Greece or Rome, I don't know. There was an earthquake or something, and then the building crumbles, everyone dies, and now they're trying to remove the rubble and honor the dead, but they don't know who is who. Luckily, one of the guests had stepped out before the building collapsed, and he could remember who was who simply because this was to the left of it, right of it, he was opposite me, she was on. So he could remember who was where because it was a physical layout in his head. And so there is an entire memory system which is around you place the information in a physical layout. For example, you live in California in a particular area, you have your house, you remember, my bedroom to my door, my gate, my driveway, the 3 trees out there, my neighbor's home, and each of this data point is very clearly a map in your head. So you can now put data out there, right? So you could start putting information out there, and if you want to retrieve it, you like start, all right, my bedroom, whatever place you can pick it up. Aha, right? The first principle, the first type of people in the Wallet segmentation, people who are going to say no and never. I walk out of the door, right? In the door I place one more time. These are people who always say yes, mostly. And I'm opening up the gate of my house, right? I place some people, behavioral segmentation. They are the cohort who says, sometimes. I do it sometimes, I'll not do it sometimes. You walk outside, I see my neighbors, Jim and Robert, and Jim's place is, no, never. I'm never going to do this. Sorry, I just started. And Robert says, I just stopped it. So I got my 5 behavioral segmentation from the Wallet segmentation, and I place them actually in my house, in this memory map of mine, right? So that book had tricks of that nature.
So 12 or 14-year-old Prakash is already going, hey, I don't have to be satisfied with the brain I have. I can change my behavior. I can change other people's behavior. This is really early on, man. This is like...
So I was around 12 when I found the book. I think I love the memory book a lot because it helped you remember a lot of stuff, and it made me good at quizzing. So I took up quizzing as a kid. I used to go out to quiz competitions, keep on winning. I would remember a lot of stuff just like that. And also, as a child, I think your brain is more spongy. It can absorb all kind of facts, irrelevant facts, just like that. And so that was fun. The other book, it just kept on saying, with the right amount of motivation, nothing is difficult in the world. So if you'll ask me, when is the first psychology kind of became interesting, I would say around this time, like, oh, you can work with the mind. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you can run, you can work with the body. So if you run regularly, you can work with the body. I grew up in Assam, right? So it means um, high likelihood I'll take up soccer or kung fu, one of these sports, right? So you know that means you practice them regularly, you can get better at it. But you could do that to your mind too by using motivation on one side and memory on the other side. So, oh, that I think those were the first time in my mind, like, oh, right, there is something called the mind. You could play with it, you can do things with it. That was a zoo. But there were a lot more other things I was interested in. I was very interested in space. The
Like space,
Russians,
like going into space, like astronaut space.
Russians had done a fantastic thing at that point of time. They would have this series of books that they published for kids, and I think it would go to countries like India, Nepal, Burma, Bhutan. I don't know if you got them in the US or not, but I knew the word cosmonaut before the word astronaut. Cosmonaut is
The
the
Russian
Russian
version,
word.
yeah.
Yeah? So I knew, oh, so Sputnik has gone out, out there. So you knew the name of all the Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space, Yuri Gagarin, all those things. And I think the Soyuz series later. So they would talk a lot about space and the universe. So I got my hand on a couple of those books. So it was fascinating. Oh man, like the idea that it could just go on and it's so much out there. It was quite fascinating. Thank God for Star Trek in life. Well, thank God, like, because when you grow up, you have
I was
Star Trek.
just having a conversation with somebody about this the other day that like Star Trek does not get enough love in
Yeah,
our generation for the number of scientists that were like, holy
yeah.
shit, Star Trek.
Holy shit, Star Trek. Like, oh, thank you. You exist, God. It's like, like Star Trek was beautiful to discover that part out there. So these were the interest in life. And at some point of time, I was selling vegetables. So in my in my in my house, there's a kitchen garden in my backyard. My father he has a green thumb. He's very good at growing vegetables and trees, and like any kind of trees is good, right? He can throw seeds and like things will sprout out like that, right? So my kitchen garden would overflow with vegetables of all kind, and so we could just finish them up. And so from the age of I think 12 till around 14 or 15, for 3-4 years, I would actually pick those vegetables and I would go and sell them in the local market near my house in the evenings, like from 5 to 7 in the evening. And it was a good pocket money thingy. If you could let go of the discomfort that your friends from school could see you and like, oh, why are you selling vegetables? Like, like, why are you doing this? And like, this is fun, or I'm making money. So that hustle thing was there a little bit. Then the word hustle didn't exist. I'm using it now,
Right.
and that was fun because that taught you 2-3 things. Like you realize, oh man, the function of how much I sell vegetable is a function of where I stand. What I mean is, like, it's a bus stop, it's a market spot area, right? So you're a child right now. I'm barely 12, 13 years old. So if I'm near a spot where the bus stops and people are getting off the bus before they go home, my likelihood of selling my vegetables is higher as opposed to slightly far away, because when they get off, I'm the first thing they see. They may come down to me and they may buy vegetables off me, right? So, so you understand. Oh, so I need to know where to stand, and then you realize, you start putting things together, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't need to be impatient in the beginning and reduce the price. I have time on my side. It's only 5 o'clock in the evening. It's only around 7:30 that the last bus is going to stop. Then I'm in trouble. But right now it's 5 o'clock. I can be patient. I can keep the price, at the right level. It's 6:30, 7 o'clock. Now I'm in trouble. Now I may want to bundle things and sell them together because I need to entice them. They know it too. Aha, like they know it that you haven't sold all your vegetables off. So they are also trying to do the mental negotiation. How much are you going to reduce it? Right? And so you're trying to bundle, like, oh, I'm going to give you, like, for example, this cucumber with this radish, bundled together for like the same price or half the price. You start figuring out those things, and then later you figure out something more interesting. Any useless, stupid data. For example, you could be watching my vegetables, like, and I could say, Matt, this was picked up from my yard barely 2 hours ago. Now that is an absolutely useless piece of information in one context. How does it matter to you? But it kind of made sense, like, to give this because the other person is not giving the data to you, the other seller. I gave it to you, and for you, like, oh, it was picked up 2 hours, must be fresh. It's so ridiculous because I'm not telling you it is fresh. I'm saying it was picked up 2 hours ago. So, see, I can articulate these things better today. Then I could not. Like, if you'd ask the 12-year-old me, what are you doing? I'm just doing, instinctively whatever comes to the mind. Today, it's easier to understand. I'm giving you data for you to form a hypothesis that my stuff is fresh, right? But then it was all instinctive. So it was fun time like that, doing that.
This is
Yeah.
fantastic. I really like Kid Prakash, man. I want to hang out with him. He seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, this was fun. The childhood that way, it was good. And at some point of time, I got done with my 10th board, my 12th board, and I, took up engineering as a subject. And I studied electronics and telecommunication, which is all about diodes and circuits and signal theories. And for example, how do I make the Zoom thing work? Right? I'm talking.
And why that? As you're sort of choosing things.
No particular reason. See, when I was growing up in India, you didn't have I did not have a lot of knowledge about what other different things I could do.
Got it.
I had a decent idea that science is a good thing. Because people around me have told it, right? And I see all the students who are like the toppers in the class, they opt for science, they become a doctor or an engineer, they go for these fields. The medical field was like, some of the idea of being a doctor didn't appeal to me. Plus, it was like almost like, when you're 16, 17 years old and someone tells you're going to be studying till you're 30 years old, I'm like, dude, another
forever.
I can't do that, right? Engineering was 4 years. Plus, you're going to get up a good job for sure, if you're done with your engineering. So that kind of idea was there. So I decided to pick up engineering. It was not like I want to build the best, fast circuits and diodes and whatever NVIDIA is doing today. That was not my goal. It was just a thing which was like, of all the different options, this is the best option. I deserve this best option because I'm good in studies.
Got it.
That's what world has told me. I also believe that by now. So I pick up engineering because of that reason. I also enjoy, it's not like I resented science. I do enjoy, these different subjects within domain of science. So that's how I picked up engineering as a subject, electronics and telecommunication as a specialization. And I spent 4 years of my life learning about diodes and transistors and, gates, and how do you build those circuits together? How can you capture this data and transform that into a signal, use maths, Laplace theorem, Fourier series, all those jazz, the Niki's criteria. How do I sample it better so that with the least amount of data, I can still maintain integrity of what I've captured. I can transmit it over some form, and then I have to decipher it so that Matt at the other end of this conversation in California can still see me on his computer, hear me, and then understand what and I have to make it all real time, right? So this kind of stuff.
I love it. You're learning probabilistic sciences. You're
Yeah.
like, this is like all on a crash course to applied behavioral science. But you're off on this like, electrical engineering EE kind of path of stuff. Where does it bend back? So you graduate and then.
So I graduated. I did what any Indian then was doing, which is I started programming. Programming was becoming big in India because the whole Y2K thing in the US.
Right.
Late 90s Y2K scare. A lot of systems have to be updated. COBOL, CC, DD. Yeah, so yeah, your DD, YY, CC is missing. Oh my God, plane's gonna crash. The world's gonna fall apart. Banks gonna lose the money. Fire everywhere. Y2K. So there was an impact of that in India in the sense a lot of people in India started doing programming. A lot of stuff was set up over here. So around, uh, I'm done with the degree just around after that. So now I am a programmer, and of all the things in the world, I actually programmed a lot in COBOL. So I'm a programmer, and I do programming, and within a year or two, I end up in the US with a nice work permit visa, and I was in Oregon. Portland, Oregon, for a couple of years. I lived there for a couple of years in Portland, Oregon. Keep Portland weird, right? I love that city. I was working for freight liners, those humongous long ass trucks. I was working for them. And so that was fun. And one of the interesting things that happened was within a week or two of me landing up in Portland, I was asked by this lady who was reporting to at freight line, would you like to be a coordinator? And I was open to the idea of whatever US gives me, I'm going to take it. Like I'm young, whatever you offer, I'm in Portland, right? I'm open to anything. I said, of course, I want to be a coordinator. I'm open to the idea, right? I say yes. And then next day, by evening, I realized the meaning of the word coordinator. So you are a manager, you can't promote, you can't punish. You have to get things done. That's your coordinator, right? So there's no incentive for anyone to listen to you. Like, why should someone listen to you? So, but I've said yes to this job. So now, essentially, my job has become about how do you get. I mean, it is delivering codes and making sure everything is done in time. But at the core of it, I have to get people to respond to me. I should be able to persuade people. But here is my constraint: I can't offer them anything. They have
You're selling
zero.
imaginary vegetables.
Oh, dude. So yeah. So this is what happened, right? So when there's nothing to sell, right, and they're not responding to you, and you're trying to figure out how do I get them to respond to me, right? Because I need to get this project delivered on time. So I don't even know how the idea came at some point of time. One thing led to the other. It's like, oh wait, not everybody's working for money. Not everybody's working for something tangible like a house or something. Sometimes people do things because somebody else is coveting it. Like you can go and tell someone, this rock is from the moon. Really? Yeah, I want it. Why? Because it is from the moon. The rock is not important. From the moon becomes important, right? So there was something quite ridiculous. I think like Bruce Willis of the month. I had something like that. And it's just this idea that you can be the Bruce Willis of the month. And this is so ridiculous. No one should give a shit about it, right? But the punt worked. Yeah. What is that? As Bruce Willis of the month. What does it mean? It means if you get your things done properly this month and you are the best, you could be Bruce Willis of the month. Bruce Willis, dude. We're talking early 2000s, right? Bruce Willis. He is the dude. And he is, driving those freight liners to save the world, right? All right. Who gets to decide Bruce Willis of the month? I do.
So, you don't have power, make power.
So it's such a make-believe thing. Bruce Willis of the month doesn't exist. It's a ridiculous thing. But now it exists because one person says, I would like to be that. But the beauty is this, because person A wants it, person B says, wait a minute, why can't I be that person? Now you can persuade them towards it, right? So you're speaking about vegetables, right? So you can't offer them bonus, you can't offer them gold or jewelry or the role of a manager or assistant manager. You can promote them, but it became easy to come down to the office with an Idaho potato from your Fred Meyer's. You come up with this huge potato, and now you're making a ridiculous story of how 13 years ago there was a big bang, 4.5 billion. 13 billion years ago there was a big bang, and 4.5 billion years ago, first life appeared, and all of these has led to this amazing creation, the Idaho potato, and it can be yours if you get this thing done by 6 o'clock today. No one wants the potato, but now it's a stupid game of sorts.
It was picked 2 hours ago from my garden. 2 hours
Two
ago.
hours, 2 hours ago from a garden, I had a potato all for you, right? And the trick is, enough people in that group have to give in to that game and say, you know what, this makes sense. I want that potato, bro. Like, I believe in. And then you realize you don't have to do that exaggeration. Someone from the crowd says, I believe in that potato. I believe in me. I've worked hard, and no one shall take that potato but me. Someone else now wants to play it up to say, not while I'm alive. And now it's competition. And then I didn't know this. Today you call this gamification. Last 10 years, talking. So it was things of this nature, and all of it was coming from the simple idea of how do I persuade people? How do I get them to listen to me and do what I need them to do? And I had no money to do it. I had no money, I had nothing to offer. So you got to do this with, I mean, I can buy either a potato for $2, right? But then the max it's my money. They're not reimbursing me for this. So I want to spend $2, 5 cents or 10 cents for the either potato, not more than that. So you have to work out something in a low budget. Now, when I was doing this, I was not trying to solve for human behavior. I was trying to get my project delivered, right? But enough things of this nature over a period of time. Today, it is easy to see, oh, so my training, my work that kind of trained me. My experience as a programmer trained me. So today it's easier for me to see the influences of all my engineering education. I can see those influences today in the way I do things, but then it was not a conscious plan.
Right. In the moment, you're just Bruce Willising it.
You were just solving. I was just solving problems as they were coming by, in my life, and one thing led to the other, and at some point of time, it became. It is hard to miss the. Okay. Let me put it like this, Matt. Right? When you're young, you think grown-ups are in charge of the world. Like, people know what they're doing. People are running the world. You're a kid, right? So they know what to do. And you still have the belief till you're like 20, 24, 25, somewhere around 20, 30, like, wait a minute. It is possible that grown-ups also are clueless. that kind of a knowledge hits you around that age. And then, at some point of time, you see, wait, there is a better way of doing this. Why are you doing it like this? I'll give an example, right? I was in this company and someone says, we need to make our team innovative. On board with the idea, that's a good idea. We have to make it innovative now. Wait a minute, it doesn't work like that. Give me ideas. And then, so we were there, the three senior folks with a team of 200 each, 600 people in that company, in that location. So we are there, we're supposed to give ideas. And one of us says, we could mandate one idea per week from the team members, 600 people, 50 weeks approximately in a year. That's 30,000 ideas, right? Think about that. But not all ideas are good. So let's say you have got 10% of the ideas are decent. That's 3,000 ideas. Let's chop it even more, 300 ideas. I got one idea to work on every day. And I'm sure in those 300 ideas, there are good ideas and will become innovative. And, you are in a meeting and it makes sense on a mathematical Excel sheet kind of way. But there are things which are bothering you with this logic, and then another person will offer saying, fantastic idea. But we need a system to log these ideas. 30,000 ideas coming from 600 people, one idea every week. We need a system. So now I'm SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint used to raise those days. I can create an entire system in SharePoint. I'm going to use Power BI for creating charts, and we'll track it. People can upvote. So now somebody has put up an entire system for upvoting this kind of data. The HR is not to be outdone. We are going to make sure every month we have intense training sessions on the meaning of innovation, why we must become innovative. Innovation now. We will drill that. And being in a meeting like that, because you're a senior yourself, you have to contribute something now, but somewhere it bothers you because this is not going to, innovation doesn't work like that. You can't mathematically formulate it. Like nothing happened. At the end of 3 months, the whole thing just failed. It fell apart, right? But luckily, I had like I think 4 or 5 team members on bench, which is they're not assigned to a project. So I told them, you got 2 months kind of off. Do whatever you want. Come here in the morning by 9 o'clock. Leave at 5. Try whatever you want. No pressure, no judgment. And for a week, they did nothing. Second week, they got bored. By the end of second week, they came up with very basic tools designed on Excel. It's nothing fancy, but Microsoft Excel, and they wrote some codes, I think, on Visual Basics, embedded within Excel sheet to create automated email alerts based upon ticket numbers. Look up table, click a button, connects to Microsoft Outlook, emails goes out. 8 hours every day, the job becomes a 10 minutes job now. That's innovation. And the reason the team could do that was because there's no pressure on them to create it. I mean, innovation happens like that. You're allowed to fail. Nobody's going to judge you. And there's no pressure. It must be amazing. Do what you can. And let's see what happens, right? So these kind of experiences, they kind of tell you like, all right, maybe the grown-ups are also clueless like kids. It's just that they have the responsibility of running the world, not necessarily extra intelligence.
Just
Some
more
sort
power.
of that kind of a doubt creeps in your mind. And at some point of time, the idea was, see, plus this certain hubris and stupidity of youth. When you're young, you are also overconfident. Like, I think I am the person to solve these problems, man. Traffic jam, I know how to solve this. People gambling away their money, I know how to fix their problem. People addicted to cigarettes, I know how to make you quit your cigarette. You also have this, I think, overestimation of your own ability when you're young. You're supremely overconfident. I can be the change agent kind of a thing. And so all this combination, kind of led me to say, I think it's not bad to try this idea of putting up a consultancy and let's see what happens out there. This needs to be solved. So multiple things, a belief in this way of doing things. And I've had, although my work was that of a programmer and later of a manager, but I've got enough feedback from life and from people around me that if you kind of look at context and behavior, good things will happen. Like for an example is I was supposed to work with a Brazilian client, and I had a month to go to Brazil to prepare myself and understand the system, the tech of it all, and tell them, don't worry, have confidence, I can take care of it from India with my team. I have a team of 100 people, I'll take care of it all, right? So I'm prepping for it all. But you know what actually gave them confidence when I finally was in Sao Paulo? It was not any of that technical detail competence. It was just me telling them in Brazilian Portuguese, tenha confiança em mim, which is have confidence in me. So I told them this in Brazilian Portuguese. I picked up basic Brazilian Portuguese in that 1 month. What happened was I found out, Brazilians are not good at English. The high level execs are, but not everyone. People are working, they know Portuguese very well, they have no need to learn English. So if I could go out there and say, you don't have to learn English for communicating with me and my team can pick up basic Portuguese and make your life easy. That has no connection to the SOW, the statement of work or the scope of the project. It's a technical project, but it's an indirect thing which came to them, and they kind of said, I think we should work with this team. So there were regular feedback from different things in life, professionally, to tell me that, you can reframe the problem. The problem is not how do I make a better tech system and get you to have confidence in me. The problem is, can I do something else to get you to have confidence in me? Broken Brazilian Portuguese is fine because the other person is speaking zero.
Right. 100%.
Right? So
this is the M&M in colors problem, right? Engineers are like, it's an irrelevant feature, but you're like, yeah, but it works, man. I don't care. Like your personal opinion about whether something is relevant or not is doesn't matter, right? It's changes their behavior. And so if broken Portuguese is the thing that's going to do it, like, okay, broken Portuguese it is.
Yeah, I spoke like man, I spoke the worst Portuguese probably ever anyone ever spoke in São Paulo in a meeting. It was horrible. But I spoke for 30 minutes. I explained the entire thing in Portuguese and they were patient. And at the end of it, they had that confidence. So I never had to say have confidence in me. Right. So these kind of things regularly have uh, kind of made me believe that all right, you can have ways to solve problem um, where we are looking at saying this is my problem. Of course, the problem is there, but a solution can be indirect. You can reframe, your offerings. For example, there was a client of ours early on, and they had a fantastic problem. One of the best uh, work, right, which I love a lot, was the client said, I need to put up this chain of, sorry, the client came and said, I need you guys to train around 50 farmers so that they produce same kind of coffee beans. And they have small parcel of land. And I don't want to go and become one of those people working with big farmers. I want to work with small farmers. I want to work with a small guy. I feel for them. So my company is going to work with 50 to 100 different farmers who have tiny parcels of land growing coffee in South India. And I need them all to learn this standardized way of making coffee beans. So I need to put up a program which can train them all to come up with same kind of practices. They follow it year after year, and then I get the coffee beans from them. And so you can see, option one, you jump straight into solving this problem. How do I design this training program for this 50 to 100 different farmers? And now your complications are increasing, right? It's not one time. They're supposed to grow the coffee beans year after year after year. There's one more layer. Some farmers are old. They may die. Their sons or daughter might take over. What do you do then? They may not believe in this idea. Someone may sell off their, coffee estate and move on it. So many complications. And with each layer, you're increasing the probability of failure with each complication, right? So you can jump straight and say, how do I solve this problem? Or you can also say, but why do you need them to pick up this farming practice, right? You can ask the why. And then your client will tell you something like, oh, I want to put up this cafe and I want to sell coffees, right? I want to make coffee and sell it out there. The beans as well as the roasted coffee as well as coffee itself proper. Yeah, but where is the problem? He said, oh, because I want to compete with Starbucks. And these chains, and they are very famous for having standardized coffee taste. If I'm going to compete with them, I need my coffee to be having a standard taste. So I need my coffee beans to be standard, which means I need them to have standard practices. Can you solve this for me, right? And we said we can solve the actual problem for you. And they're like, what do you mean the actual problem? I said, your problem is not let me get all the farmers to the same kind of practice. Your problem is my customer is going to reject my coffee if it is not seeming as standard the way a Starbucks coffee is. That's your problem statement. So you can reframe the problem. You can, before the customer rejects you, you can proudly come up and say, I'm going to serve you consistently inconsistent coffee, which is every taste you have is slightly different because I'm legit, I'm human, I'm real. I'm not a big chain, I'm niche. So if you go with this, you have already solved two problems, which is the customer is not going to reject your offering, but they're going to try it out because it's niche. And it actually tells them, your customer can now actually do marketing on your behalf. This usual, commercialized Starbucks is not for me, bro. This is the coffee I, vibe with. You're cutting down your marketing cost because it allows people to brag for you, right? But on the other side, the whole idea, I have to keep on training my farmers. You remove that complication from your life. So again, it's not like a book or a manual that you can reframe the problem. It just, I think, has been the different experiences that have come down to me in life. I'm thankful that which allowed for this kind of way of solving problem. If you don't straight up jump, maybe the problem is something else. How do I know that is the problem? Can the problem be something else altogether, right? So, um,
Yeah, Steve Wendell is super fascinated by this right now. He is very
yeah,
into the like, behavioral science of systems and like how do we even choose the right, I spent so much of my time on the okay, given the problem, how do we solve it? He's very much into the how do we like even figure out if that's the right problem to solve,
problem.
which we do a
Yeah.
little bit, right? We try at the beginning to sort of press on the like, well, what do we really want to have happen and why do we want to have that and is that the thing? But at the end of the day, there's so much work to do on just getting the science part right. Like the
True.
choosing part is its own problem. But I think I love that there are people like you and Steve who are deeply interested in the problem choosing part because it makes my part easier, right? Better Aladdin's equal, make better genies, right?
I
Like,
totally love your approach, Matt, and almost all of my proposals, right? When I'm working with the client for the first time, they have a reference of what I call the wallet segmentation, the 5 behavioral possible cohorts, because um, Steve's work is amazing, your work is amazing. And like my approach has been to see people who are really good and they have a very fantastic point of view on the world. Like your point of view that I can take almost any population sample in the world and I can always slice them into these 5 behavioral states. It's so simple. It's so beautiful. It's so fundamental. It fits everywhere, right? So it becomes easy for me to say, oh man, that's fantastic. Let me pick it up. Let me ask for permission. Can I borrow this? I'm going to attribute to you, and then put some sort of a thing together. I never went to a college to learn behavioral science, so like I'm not trained in the sense this is how you're supposed to solve problems using this science, right? So for me, it has come down over a period of time as a natural thing to pick up and say there's a problem to be solved. The problem does not care what discipline you're going to bring to it. The problem is like, can you solve me to it, right? So you got to solve it, right? Solving it can sometimes mean you play with colors, you play with temperature. Can I make this retail store feel more premium to my customers by reducing the temperature like 1 2 degrees below? Can I make them spend more time by playing a certain kind of music? In a different context, can I make them go fast? I need, like, you realize, if I'm trying to get people, the consumer, to make a decision, sometimes I need to make time slow down. It needs to be an experience that indulge, because at the end of that long indulgence, they're going to swipe maybe $2,000, $5,000 instead of 800. But you have to allow them an indulgence. So you slow the time for them. Sometimes, though, in a different context, you have to speed up time for them. Sense of urgency, right? So, okay, what can I use for speeding up time? And then the answer comes, can I use music for that? Can the type of music I play change that perception? Can I play with the layout of the store, right? The distance between them and the cashier. How do I play with these different things? And so, like I said, Reshma is quite fond of, my co-founder Reshma, she's quite fond of saying this, and I picked it up from her. Problem does not care what discipline you're bringing to it. Problem cares for just one thing. Can you solve it, right? So whatever you can bring to solve it, and like you keep on saying that, is the approach science? Is it based in science, or is it just gut feeling and like a blind, throwing of a dart? If it's not a blind throwing of dart, see, gut is also expertise, by the way. So let me correct myself
sure.
out there. Gut feeling is extreme expertise, honed time after time after time, which you are not even able to explain at times. Why did you do this? I don't know, man. Felt right. No, no, no. Don't just and like dismiss it. It is extreme expert. That's gut, right? So you have done it a number of times. So as long as you can come with an approach which is, you know, coming from the world itself, things around it. It's not a blind. The word in Hindi is tukka, like a blind throw up dart. If it is legit, then I think it is a good way of trying to find solutions for a client. There is this beautiful story, I think, in the Guinness Book of World Records. They had this gorilla or a chimp, and it was the most successful money manager ever in the history of animals. And I think in the late 90s, they did this ridiculous thing. They would let the chimp like throw a dart, and there were different stocks listed out there from the S&P 500 or 100, one of those. And wherever the dart would fall, right, they would pick it up and they would make it a portfolio of those, and that's how they pick up the stocks. And the stocks were actually performing very well. And that's how the chimp, I think, was in the Guinness Book of World Records, one of the most successful money managers of all time. I love the story, right? Because it's so ridiculous and it's so amazing at the same time. We don't want to do it. We don't want to do that, but it's such a fantastic thing. Like, oh my God, you could do things randomly, and even that can lead to results. Should we do it though? Again, how do we do it? Just because in the world, random application of something can give something. Should we go with that, or should we try to become a little more scientific? And you keep on saying, right, science as the process and behavior as the outcome. Did I get it right? Yeah. So can you do something like that, right? It's okay. See, you're never dealing in 100% guarantees. That's not the job out here. That's a con man's job. Then you're a liar. The moment you give a 100% guarantee in this kind of a field, you're lying, most likely, right? All you're saying is I can increase the possibility.
That's right. And that means, and I love this because I think people miss this, right? They want science to be deterministic. They want it to be like 1 + 1 always equals 2. But it's not, right? Science is not deterministic. It's probabilistic, which means that at some point in the universe, you're going to get beat by a chimp throwing darts, right? Like, you're going to run this good scientific process and the damn chimp with the darts is going to beat you. And that, 1 in a million times, that has to be, like, probabilistically, that will happen. And so you could have the best process in the world and still lose. Before we end, though, because we're getting close on the end of time, we got to do another one of these because you and I could talk for hours. I want to know a little bit about community, because you've been such a great community builder, right? The Behavioral Science Club and Attas and sort of like bringing people together as a community. Talk to me about, like, has that always been there? Like, you were always the kid that was getting people together? Was it like, where did this come about for you? Because it is an activity that you do both personally and professionally. Like, you are a gatherer of people, but both at some very core and what seems to me emotional level. And also, sort of professionally, you're very good at sort of getting people to go and be together in a professional sense. Where does this come from in your story?
I think a little bit of it is just possibly me as a person, the idea that, see, like, for example, you're a friend of mine, Matt, right? I got another friend called Biju Dominic out here, lovely mind. When you are here, if I can get you to talk with him, I got friend A to meet friend B, and now they're friends independent of me. That's something which I enjoy, because, like, you got to know one more person, and Biju got to know one more person, right? So you guys got, in this world, you found one more person with whom you can vibe. So human beings, I think you need to be able to talk with people, and you can't talk with everyone. So if you can talk with like-minded people, I think it's fun. So that is something I do enjoy. I do like getting my friends close together and getting people who are like a musician and a programmer. Guys, talk. I think you guys have something in common, right? So they become friends. I enjoy that part. That has been there, especially in this world right now. It's also giving back, because I've been very lucky, Matt. Me, Reshma, 1001 Stories. The amount of people who have been so kind and generous with their time, with their knowledge, right from the beginning when you put up this thing together, right? In the beginning, I'll give a small example, right? When I was just starting out, me and Reshma, I would talk a lot about the brain, the neuroscience, the dopamine, the trigger states, and here is this bias, and this is what is happening, and here is your anticipation of regret, and this is how. And I would not see a lot of conversion in terms of my pitches, and then I'm like, dude, but I'm giving you the legit science behind it. And then someone told me, busy told me, right, saying, Prakash, no one cares about this science in the corporate world. I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to do this? Like, I don't call him dude, like I'm way too much. So I'm like, how am I supposed to do this? He said, what does the client care about? And I said, money? He said, yeah. Tell them you do this, you get the money. Like, oh. And from that day, I kind of dropped the whole, in my pitches or the initial conversation. They don't, I mean, they're happy you're using the science, but you could be using voodoo magic. You could stick a pin for all they care.
Right.
Black magic is giving me the returns. Is my needle going? Did I get the ROI? What is my percentage, right, of increase? That's what the client wants. Like, all right, thank you so much. It took all of like 30 seconds for him to tell me that. But it's such a profound lesson because it changed the direction in which my conversation with my clients have gone. I don't bring up too much science out there. I talk in terms that they understand. And I talk about what is the problem you're trying to solve. If you solve this, is it a $1 million revenue change, 5, 10? What's the time frame? That's the language they understand. And of course, I'm going to use me and my team, the science. But when I speak with the client, I'm talking in terms of money and time and their pressure, right? So me and Ray have been very lucky. People have showered their love, knowledge, affection, warmth. Once we were doing this online fest called the Now Fest, COVID time, right? So 2-3 days long fest, 70 speakers from different corners of the world, crazy kind of conversations about data, behavior, deep fakes, sociology, anthropology, right? And I wanted to put up a panel around language because we work a lot with context. Language is an important part of it. How do we talk? Language could be words, language are proverbs, language, the dark meaning of it all, right? The unsaid, said. Language can also be how you interpret numbers. Anyways, there was a lot of interest in conlanging, which is constructed languages. And when you speak about conlanging, Klingon is right up there. And I'm a Trekkie. I love the Star Trek universe. And I'm like, oh man, I need to get Mark Ockran on this show. It's online. You have to travel. It is doable, right? Here's the thing. No one knows where is Mark Ockran because there's no website or a phone number or an email ID where you can drop him a text. But I need to get in touch with him and I need to convince and persuade him join this thing, even though you have no idea who I am, right? So I start creating these memes with, Worf and Gaura and all the Klingon folks, and, start sending it out in WhatsApp and LinkedIn and like Reddit forums and everywhere. Just start spreading it out and people start messaging me. People who are random, no idea, right? They say, talk here, talk here. And that's how eventually I went on a couple of Star Trek forums and got in touch with somebody who had made a film, directed a documentary on conlanging. And he had worked with the guy who came up with, I think, Valerian and Dothraki language from Game of Thrones. He had also interviewed Mark Ockran for that film he had made. And he said, why are you doing this? Are you a scamster? I'm like, no, dude, I'm legit. I just am a big fan.
Just really like Klingon, man.
I just need to speak with him. And they were worried because what is madness you are doing? And then when he got convinced, he said, okay, I'm going to put you in touch with him. And he put me in touch. And Mark Ockran responded, man, and I was happy. I was little girl. I was jumping. He responded. And then he became a part of Now Fest. And he spoke about the art of creating a language. He spoke about why Klingon is this guttural, hard consonant ending sound because you have to create an alien context. It can't end in vowels, right? So, and then he spoke about how it went beyond his control and became one of the largest spoken, constructed language in the whole world, right? The point is, people have been the universe is very kind that way, Matt, right? So people have been very, very helpful. And if people have been helpful and kind, why should you not be? that is the way to be. So, which is why me and Rishma, we like, oh yeah, let's find whichever way we can help students, aspiring professionals, clients who are confused, people in general, whoever needs any kind of a suggestion, conversation, even like a no context conversation, like the adda which you were there at, right? So all of this, just come down out here. I don't know you. There is no ulterior motive out here. I got coffee. I got conversations. Come and chit chat and then go and be happy, right? I think the world is better like that because it's a fun way of living life. It's a fun way.
You are, and you are. You are, I find behavioral scientists fun, but you are certainly one of the most fun of us. And you've done such a wonderful job giving back to the community, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on the show and just sharing yourself so generously, which I so love. As I told you offline beforehand, I might see you in a month. So maybe by the time this episode comes out, we'll add a picture in person. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. The one thing that I've noticed is we're gonna have to get Reshma to do it too, right? I gotta get the flip side of your story. We could do this again for another whole hour, and maybe we will. But we'll leave it there. For now, thank you so much, Prakash, for all you do for me, for the community, for behavioral science, and for coming on the show and just sharing the generosity of your story. And I'll see you on down the line, my friend.